honored and also take pride in saying, welcome to St. Patrick's College. Our school was established in 2015, and since then, our students have gone on to prove themselves beyond reasonable doubt. In the 2019-2020 academic session, we won the bronze medal at the Anambra State Olympiad Science Competition. In the 2020-2021 academic session, we went on to win the gold medal at the Anambra State Olympiad Science Competition. In the 2020-2021 academic session, we won the silver medal at the Awka Diocesan Secondary Schools Debate Competition. On the 16th April 2020, we won the gold medal at the Rotary Club Debate Competition for secondary schools in Anambra State. In July 2021, we won the bronze medal at the Anambra State Governors Debate Competition for secondary schools in Awka. In 2021, we won the National Geographic Competition held across the country. In March 2020, we won the silver and the bronze medal at the Christ King's College, Onitsha, in the English Essay and Novel Summary Competition. In July 2021, our students not only represented Anambra State in Abuja at the National Interswitch Science Competition, but two of them emerged amongst the best 80 science students in Nigeria. In the same July 2021, our students emerged amongst the best 500 mathematics students in Nigeria. In the 2021 Anambra State Basic Examination results, among the best 20 students in Anambra State, our students took the 14th position. And finally, our last SWAYEC and NECO result was a really great result. And our best students in the JAMB examination last year scored 292. Prof, in St. Patrick's College, only the best is good enough for us. Thank you and welcome once again. This is St. Patrick's College. Feel at home.
Before the Prof takes the floor, I invite our beloved parent who made it possible for Prof to be here today, Barrister Muoneke. Please.
Good morning, Padre. Good morning, teachers. Prof. Good morning to you. Good morning, my wonderful students. It's a thing of joy to be here in your midst, and particularly to be here with my very good friend, Professor Okechukwu. When I told Father Principal that the Prof is going to be in town, he begged me passionately to solicit with the professor to come and speak with you. I told him that I would do that, even though the Prof's schedule is quite tight, but I will try and see that he comes here. And happily, after my persuasion, he was able to find time to be here.
In Nemo, and in a lot of ways, I got my best education in that school. And so as I listened to your principal, as I listened to my dear friend who invited me to come, as I listened to two students bear witness to the beauty, to the excellence of the school, it renewed my hope in the vibrancy of not only this school, but of our state and indeed of our country. When I was in school at St. Michael's, I was fortunate to be a member of the debating society. I was the leader of the quiz team at St. Michael's as well. So as I heard about all the laurels, all the awards, and all the great performances of this school at the state, regional, and national levels, I had a sense of deja vu, and a sense that in a lot of ways I was reliving a time when education was still treasured in our society. Today, it is easy, it is attractive for our people to say, Nako, Nesio Bike, Okunu Januye, Nako Nesi Obi Ike. I'm sure that you also hear men and women talk about Ije Bute Ike, right? Okay. I want to propose two different wisdoms that don't quite cancel the suggestion that but I tell you, in the rest of the world, especially the world that is making the best, most dynamic progress, or amamife mota esiobike. Okay? So those of you who are doing what you're doing, I want you to know that if you focus on your studies, if you focus on developing your critical and cognitive abilities, that in the end, this world belongs to you and not necessarily to the wealth. Indeed, the best route, the best path, even to material wealth, is through creative and cognitive excellence. Okay? It is from learning that you recreate your society, that you recreate your lives, that you create a better society. Wealth in itself is not interesting. It's easy to get wealth. I don't know if you know how easy it is. If you become a governor, if you become a president, it's easy to steal the resources of a state or of a nation. It's easy. You can award contracts that are fraudulent and you pocket the money. If you're an armed robber and you can corner a vehicle carrying money, you get that money. It's easy. But in order to learn, in order to become an educated and enlightened citizen, you have to apply yourself. There are no shortcuts. Now I'm going to what I propose to do this morning is also to tell you that the real Ike which you can get, Ike which is lasting, which endures, is the Ike of knowledge and of moral wisdom. That's the most important Ike, not again the Ike of material wealth. I was very fortunate. I didn't know it at the time when I was growing up. My mother was a school teacher. She was an elementary school teacher. So in those days, if I wanted to go and visit my friends, my mother would say to me, first you have to read before you go. And it wasn't just to read. After reading, you had to sit down with her and explain to her what you'd read. I thought I was in hell. If I wanted to go and play football with my friends, I had to first read. Now, I also was unfortunate to have an elder brother, my friend Muoneke Francis knows my brother. My brother was always first from elementary school all the way to university. He's a doctor today. My brother was always first. I loved to play. God gave me the gifts to be first. You are playing too much, that's why you're not making it. You're not consistently first. I thought I was in hell to have parents who would bother me with coming first, a mother who would insist that I had to read in order for me to go and play. I just wanted to go and play, like a lot of my classmates who were able to go play just whenever they chose. It was only later in life. Well, by the way, as I read, at my mom's compulsion, I began to travel. My parents were poor, so I wasn't able to go in those days to London on summer vacations, much less to America. But then, when I read American books, or books by British authors, what the books did was that they transported me to those locations. So even though I was in Nigeria, in a sense, in a metaphysical form, I was able to travel to London. I was able to travel to America, to go to Australia, to go to Belgium. Any books that I read took me to the cultures, to the mores, to the habits, to the beauty and the landscapes of the locations that I was reading about. So that's one thing that literature does for you. So literature also is a form of enchantment. I remember as a secondary school student encountering Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. How many of you have read the novel? Wonderful. So that novel changed my life. If you remember, the opening line, the opening paragraph of that novel says, Okonkwo was well known throughout the 9 villages and even beyond. His fame rested on solid personal achievements. As a young man of 18, he had brought honor to his village by throwing Amalinze the cat. Amalinze was a great wrestler who for 7 years was unbeaten from Muoneke to Mbaino. He was called the cat because his back would never touch the earth. It was this man that Okonkwo threw in a fight which the old men agreed was one of the fiercest since the founder of their town engaged the spirit of the wilds for 7 days and 7 nights. I read that novel and it changed my life. First of all, I encountered in literature characters who had names that were familiar to me. Okonkwo, Onoka, Obi, Erika, Ogbuefi Udo, and so on. Good. So, for the first time, here was Achebe telling a story that was familiar to me, both in terms of the characters and in terms of the location of those stories. And so one day, during the long holidays, I was doing what a lot of young people would do. We were just standing by the side of the main road, the old road to Onitsha, just gisting. And then we saw from the distance a strange-looking car approaching. It was a bluish car, and we all paid attention. And as the car passed, we recognized that the man driving it was Chinua Achebe. Indifferent to danger, we all jumped into the road, and we started waving. And we could see Achebe see us through his rearview mirror, and he raised a hand to us. And that was the most wonderful, magical experience of my life up to that point. So one day, subsequently during the holidays, every Saturday, we'll go and stake out at that spot to see if Achebe will pass again. And indeed, Achebe, who was then a professor at the University of Nigeria, will pass through that way to go to Ogidi, his hometown. So we recognized this car. It was a Mercury Monarch, a long, ugly American car at the time. Americans used to know how to build cars. They are much better these days. So when we saw Achebe from a distance, we'll start waving before he got to us. And we'll be moved that he waved back to us. So one day, I lived in Enugu at the time. My mother was a school mistress there. My father was at a fuel station in Enugu near Nkwo. And so with my heart pounding, this was Achebe. I had read almost all his novels at this time. With my heart pounding, I approached him. When I got to him, I said, "Good afternoon, sir." And he said, "Good afternoon" to me. this was unbelievable experience. So I ran to my friends and I told my friends that the Achebe we had been waving to, that I had seen Achebe close by and that I greeted Achebe and he responded. So I gave them a notice that I would not be talking to them for weeks. Several years later, after I graduated, I was posted to the Concord newspaper in Lagos. First of all, I studied business administration. But because of my interest, my proficiency in English, I had written in every major newspaper by the time I graduated. In fact, I paid my way through my tertiary education from money that I earned from my writings in newspapers. And so I was hired by the Concord newspaper, and I had 2 weeks to resume, and I went to Ogidi to visit a friend of mine. And I was telling her how I wished that Ogidi was my hometown, so that I could say that Chinua Achebe was mine in some way. And she had a wry smile, and she said to me, "Do you know that Achebe is my uncle?" I said, "You're just claiming this, right?" She said no, that she was serious. And she told me that Achebe was home that weekend, and that Achebe's home was just behind her home. And she said to me, "Would you want to meet Chinua Achebe?" I said yes. So we went to Achebe's house. Achebe was such a generous and gracious man. I remember I drank the best Coca-Cola in his house and some biscuits. So I told Achebe I had just been hired by the Concord. And I said, "I want to interview you." Achebe gave me his telephone number at Osaka and said, "Whenever you're ready, let me know." So when I arrived in Lagos, I told my editor that I had met Chinua Achebe and he'd agreed to grant me an interview. And the editor said, "That's going to be your first assignment." So they paid for me to fly to Enugu, to stay at Hotel Presidential for a week, and to go to Nsukka to interview Chinua Achebe. That interview is recalled in my book, Never Look an American in the Eye. I went with Achebe to his office at the Institute of African Studies at the university, and for nearly 3 hours, I did an interview. Then I came back to Enugu, to my hotel, and some of my friends came to my hotel room and they said, "We want to hear Achebe's voice." It's not like now. In the internet age, you can go and Google Achebe. There are so many thousands of places where Achebe spoke, so you can listen to his voice. In those days, people didn't know how writers sounded. So I brought out my tape recorder and I pressed play. There was silence. I put in the next tape, pressed play, nothing. I had interviewed Achebe for 3 hours. The tape recorder did not get 1 second of what Achebe said. 1 second. And I was so in awe of Achebe that as he spoke, even though I had notebooks and a pen, I didn't take any notes. I was just walking, looking at him in awe. So I called Achebe back with terror. And in those days, there were no cell phones. So I asked the hotel to start dialing Achebe's home. So finally, they got through to him. And I apologized profusely. I said, "I've wasted your time. But please, would you let me come back tomorrow? Just give me 25 to 30 minutes, I said. And Achebe, as I said, was a gracious and generous man. He told me that the next day he was busy. But he said to me, "If you can come back in 2 days, I'll give you as much time as you want." So 2 days later, I went back to Nsukka not just with one, but with 3 tape recorders that I had to borrow from journalists in Enugu. And so Achebe saved my career by granting me that interview. Now, after the feature that I wrote on Achebe came out, Achebe was so pleased with it that he adopted me as an informal student, and he became a champion of my work. Achebe began to champion my work. So he began to send me information. If he had a new book coming out, he would let me know. I'll be the first journalist in Nigeria to publish that Achebe had a new book coming out. And so finally in 1988, Achebe called me and said that he and some other writers and intellectuals in America wanted to set up an international magazine, and that he had given them my name as the ideal candidate to be the founding editor of the magazine. So that's how I went to America. Because I read Achebe's Tales Fall Apart, and I was so captivated by it that in a lot of ways I became a lifelong Achebe student. So subsequently, I went to graduate school in America, did my PhD in English, and a part of my dissertation was on Chinua Achebe's work, as well as the works of an African-American author, John Edgar Wideman, and a South African author, Zakes Nda. All of these were my students, but a lot of them were not interested. They were interested instead in cutting corners. And so the society we have created, when there is no electricity in Nigeria, it is because too many people have cut corners. We spent a lot of money, enough money to make this country a form of paradise. I will pause because I'd like you to ask questions. I'll pause in a moment. But I want to tell you 2 quick snippets based on my experiences traveling around the world. In 2015, I happened to be in Somaliland, Hargeisa. Somaliland is part of Somalia that used to be known as British Somalia before it was merged with Italian Somalia to be one country, Somalia. In the early 90s, as Somalia came apart at the seams, with Siad Barre, who was then the dictator, on the run, this formerly British colony decided to declare their independence and to be a separate country. Today, no country in the world has recognized Somaliland as a nation. Even so, they have a security unit, they use the US dollar as their currency, they have police, they have a parliament, they have a president. So, it's a poor country, very poor country, it's a desert. But I was there in a hotel, I was there for 5 days. And every day, there was not one day when there was power failure. Not one day. And water flowed everywhere. But what impressed me even more was that at the literary festival that I attended there, writers were mobbed as if they were music stars. The same way that people would treat Davido or Whiskey or Flavor if they saw them, was the way they were treating writers. So you saw people who had very little money, but they would buy 10 books and line up to have those books signed for them. And that told me that here was a vibrant society, a society that would thrive. I'll tell you a different story of what happened in Uganda. In 2002, I was invited by the US Embassy in Uganda to come and give workshops to writers there for a week. I arrived at Entebbe Airport, and a Ugandan driver picked me up at the airport. As we were driving to the center of Kampala to my hotel, I arrived at night. I looked at both ways of the highway and there was electricity. So I turned to this driver and I said, "How is the electricity situation in Uganda?" He said to me, "Bad." I said, "How bad?" He said, "Very bad." And I said to him, "How often do you have power outages, power cuts?" He said, "Once or twice a week." I said, "For how long?" He said, "Sometimes it's up to 2 hours." For a driver in Uganda, that was very bad. Okay? Now, in the end, I found out that what they had is actually that every morning the newspapers will write all the areas in Kampala. They will say this area will lose electricity from 8 p.m. and then the electricity will come back at 10. So it was load shedding. So it's not power cuts, it's not indiscriminate power cuts as we have in Nigeria. It was programmed. But for a driver in Uganda, he held his country to higher expectations. So he said, this is not even 1 minute of power failure was he willing to accept. So he said it was very bad. So I did an event. The first event was a reception for me at a small house which the Dutch embassy had given to the writers group that I was there to give workshops to. And as the event progressed, I needed to use the bathroom. But I pictured a typical Nigerian bathroom, how dirty it might be. So I told myself I'm going to wait until I got back to my hotel room. But the reception kept going and going, people didn't want to leave. So finally I said, show me a place to pee. I went into the bathroom and it was very clean and water was running. So I told myself, how did they get the water? Through boreholes, right? Right. Okay. So as they were going to drop me finally at the hotel, I said to them, you are using borehole, right? And they didn't know what borehole meant. They said, what do you mean? I said, the water in this facility. I said, you dug a borehole, right? They said, what's a borehole? I said, didn't you, dig the water yourself? And they told me in Uganda that they have a water corporation. And anytime, anywhere you build a house in Kampala or any other city in Uganda, you are required to pay a fee, and you pay that fee and public water will be supplied to you at home. And that's what they were using. So, I came back from that trip and I gathered a few of my friends in Lagos and I was telling them of my experiences in Uganda. I said there, they have load shedding, power failure at most twice a week. And then I said, every house has access to public water. And a lawyer friend of mine said, are you comparing us to Uganda? They're a small country. And I said to him, we become boastful with our incompetence. The right question would have been, what is the resource? What is the financial strength of Uganda compared to Nigeria? And if you compared Uganda to Nigeria, one billionaire in Nigeria was wealthier than all of Uganda. But to find a society that sets high standards for itself. So that's why I was impressed when the priest led you and you spoke about standards. It's important. We have a society that is dismissive of standards. But I can tell you that in the real world, in the world that is sustainable, in the world that you want to live in the world that you want to have your being, in the world that you all will ultimately want to bring your own children to live in. That you want not only standards, but the highest possible standards. And I want to propose to you that in the end, the best approach to high standards is a commitment to the life of the mind.